Hey there, I'm Nick, and I'm going to help you take your first steps into Warhammer Quest Cursed City. Warhammer Quest Cursed City is a cooperative game. It sees you and up to 3 of your friends enter the city of Ulfenkarn to defeat the evil vampire Radakar the Wolf and his malevolent undead hordes. Will you be victorious and lift the curse, or will you be added to the growing legions of the undead? The Warhammer Quest Cursed City box set contains everything you need to play the game, including awesome Citadel miniatures representing your heroic adventurers and the nefarious villains they'll have to face. A set of boards is also included that makes up the dark and foreboding streets of the Cursed City, and a whole host of dice, tokens and cards too. First up, select one player to be the leader and give them the leader token. At different times throughout the game, it's the leader's responsibility to perform certain actions, such as moving hostile models and rolling for their attacks. We'll take a closer look at these actions as they come up. Next, it's time to choose which journey you're going to take into Ulfenkarn. Each one has different victory conditions that you must achieve to advance your quest to save the Cursed City. For this Learn to Play video, we're going to play the Hunt journey, which sees our heroes trying to kill as many of Radakar's minions as possible. Now it's time to pick your fighters. Who will you choose? We've gone for infamous vampire hunter Jelson Darroch, Calathis the Exile, a vengeful Kanothi hunter, the mysterious Cleona Zeitingale, and Brutok Corpse Eater, because as much as anything else, I just like saying his name. Now you need to grab your dice. Each player requires 4 activation dice. These are spent by our heroes to carry out actions such as moving and cutting down the undead hordes. Then there are destiny dice. These are a pool of shared dice that any of our heroes can spend to perform actions. Perfect if you need to make just one more attack. There are also action dice, which we roll to determine the success of actions, such as attacks. These are a little different from the other dice, as they have 3 values: failure, success, and critical success. We'll talk more about what each of these outcomes means when we roll some dice later. Finally, there's the quest dice. There'll be various times throughout a journey that the leader has to roll the quest dice to determine what happens to our group of heroes. For example, the quest dice resolves the behaviour of hostile groups in the Cursed City. I hope you've not picked a leader who always rolls high. After that, it's time to set up the game board. The journey you pick will tell you how to set up the board tiles. For this hunt, we're entering the mysterious alleyways of Ulfenkarn. These red dots show where to place mysterious object markers. If our heroes search these, they may find items to help them with their quest, such as powerful magical artifacts. But it's not always good news. These sites are also gathering points for Radakar's twisted minions. To see which hostiles we'll be facing, draw some encounter cards equal to the number of mysterious object markers, so 3 in this case. As you can see, there are levels on the cards. As your heroes get more experienced, they'll find much tougher tests within the Cursed City. Since this is our first game and our heroes are level 0, we use the models listed on the first line of each encounter card. When we're all set up, our table should look something like this. Each turn of the game is split into 5 phases. These are the Journey phase, the Destiny phase, the Initiative phase, the Activation phase, and the Event phase. Let's go into a bit more detail about each of these phases. The Journey phase is split into 2 steps, the Nightfall step and the Quest step. During the Nightfall step, move the Nightfall token 1 space clockwise around the Sky Vessel board. This represents time passing as you make your way around Ulfenkarn. We're not going to show it today, but as you might expect from a city full of vampires, you don't want to be around after dark. The quest step is only used during certain journeys, so we're not going to go into too much detail here. But let's just say that you could find yourself being chased through the streets by a malignant endless spell. Next is the Destiny phase, where we'll generate destiny dice that your heroes can use later in the game. To do this, roll all 5 of the black destiny dice and discard any doubles, triples, quadruples or quintuples. You've rolled 5 6s? Sorry, they've all got to go. We've rolled a 2, a 2, a 3, a 4 and a 6, so we keep the 3, 4 and 6, moving them to the white space, and we discard the 2s. These Destiny dice are usable by the whole party and act as a shared pool of extra activation dice, which we'll cover in just a moment. The initiative phase is where we generate our activation dice, which are used to perform actions later in the turn and determine the order in which our heroes and villains act. First, each player rolls one activation dice for each empty space on their hero's character cards. As we'll see later, these spaces can get covered up, so you might not always roll all of the dice. Let's roll these 4 dice for Jelson. Usually, the more demanding an action is, the higher number we need to perform it, so the better you roll now, the better your activation will be. The leader then makes an initiative deck, which is used to determine who goes in which order during the activation phase. To make your initiative deck, simply take each initiative card for each hero and hostile group in play. Then shuffle them and draw them one at a time, placing them left to right on the combat track to determine the initiative order for that turn. If you don't like the look of the initiative order, if for example you're surrounded by hostiles and they're going before you can perform a gambit to try and change your position. This requires you to spend 1 of your activation dice. Once the initiative order has been determined, we can move on to the activation phase. This is where our heroes and villains take it in turns to move around, fight, and use their abilities. We'll start with our heroic vampire hunter, Jelson Darroch. Each hero can perform 1 of 6 basic actions by spending 1 of their activation dice. The number you rolled on that die must be equal to or higher than the cost of the action. Many of the heroes also have unique abilities included on their card, which they can also perform. For example, Brutog Corpse Eater can perform a devastating shoulder barge. You can perform your actions in any order you like. Let's have a look at the basic actions first. You can use any of your activation dice to move, while you will need a 3 or more to run. If you look at your hero's card, you'll see how far they can move. So, Jelson Darroch can move 3 spaces, or he can run 4. Let's spend this 2 to move Jelson 3 spaces. Each weapon has a category that determines how it can be used. Melee weapons can only be used to slay adjacent models. Ranged weapons can only attack models that are not standing next to you. If your weapons have the dual type, good news, no one is safe from your wrath. Jelson has 1 of each. Let's use this 6 to shoot at those Ulfenwatch. When Jelson uses Judgment, his musket, he rolls 2 blue dice. A success will do 2 points of damage, while a critical success will result in 4 points of damage. First, we have to select a model as a target. They must be at the correct range for the weapon and visible to our hero. Let's choose this Ulfenwatch Sergeant as our target. We roll our dice, and we've rolled a critical success which does 4 wounds. If we look at the Ulfenwatch Hostiles card, we see that each of the fighters only have 2 wounds, but Sergeant has 3. So we have killed this fighter. We're 1 step closer to lifting the curse. Put the slain hostile to one side. There's a chance it might return to fight later. That's always a problem when you're fighting the undead. Let's see if we can take out this other member of the Ulfenwatch too. We can use this 1 to move next to it, and then this 3 to attack. To use Jelson's melee weapon, the Ardent Blade, we roll the red action dice. This attack does 2 damage, which turns the Ulfenwatch into little more than a bag of bones. As you slay more enemies, your heroes can be inspired. Not only do they become better fighters, but some of their actions will be cheaper too, perfect if you're unlucky with your dice rolls, like me. That leaves us with no activation dice left for Jelson. However, we can also use these Destiny dice for any of the remaining basic actions. If you're standing next to one of the mysterious object markers, you can search it for treasure. You might find helpful artifacts or valuable realm stone, which can be used to improve your equipment. But beware, it could also be a trap. Spend an activation dice with a value of 4 or more and draw a discovery card. Let's spend this 4 to see what Jelson Darroch has found. Oh, it's a treasure card, the Vengeful Mirror. Treasure cards like this are incredibly handy. Our hero can hold on to this card until it's time to use it later. The airship Adamant, captained by the famed Dagnai Holdenstock, flies overhead, ready to extract you from the Cursed City when needed. When it's time to end your journey, you can call in the airship to pick you up if you're next to a closed gateway. Then, you can spend an activation dice of 4 or more to call in your pickup. We've only just started this adventure, so we don't need to do this until we've completed our mission. If a hero has taken any wounds, they will have wound tokens, or perhaps even grievous wound tokens, on their character card. They can attempt to heal them by spending one of their activation dice. Roll the action dice shown under Vitality on the character's card. Jelson rolls the bone-coloured dice. If you roll a success, you can remove a wound token or turn a grievous wound token into a normal wound token. If you roll a critical success, you can remove 2 wound tokens or a grievous wound token. Jelson isn't wounded, so we don't need to worry about this yet. Some of our heroes, such as Cleona Zightingale, also have unique abilities. When she activates, she can spend her dice on these actions in addition to the basic ones. So she could spend a 6 to use her Staff of Celestial Devastation to cleanse the streets with her righteous magic. Now it's time for the bad guys to have a go. When it's the hostiles' turn to activate, their card tells you exactly what to do. First up, it's the Orphan Watch. Roll the quest dice, and consult the table on the cards for those hostiles. For example, with our Orphan Watch. The entire hostile group takes a charge action. Every model moves twice and then attacks with any weapons that are in range. Hostiles move and fight in the same way as the heroes, but it's the leader who's responsible for taking their actions. The Orphan Watch moves 3 spaces. The skeletons are activated one at a time. Let's start with this one. Since they're now next to Jelson, they can attack with their rusted weapon. They roll 2 bone-coloured action dice to attack. Unlike the hostiles, our heroes make a defense roll when attacked. Let's look at Jelson's defense characteristic. If we roll a success, we reduce the damage taken by 1 point, but if we roll a critical success, we reduce the damage by a whopping 3 points. We've rolled a success, which means that Jelson is unhurt. Phew. Now, the second skeleton moves and attacks. Oof, a critical success. That's going to cause 2 wounds unless Jelson can deflect it. Fortunately, we can use the vengeful mirror we picked up earlier in the adventure to reflect 1 point of damage back onto the hostile skeleton. However, Jelson still has to take some damage. Place a wound counter on his character card. You'll notice that wound counters take up the spaces where we usually put the activation dice. This means Jelson will have 1 fewer dice to use for activations in the next turn. If all these spaces are filled up with your wound tokens, your hero will be taken out of action the next time they receive damage. This is why the recuperate action we mentioned earlier is so important. As your heroes make their way through the city, their wounds can become particularly grievous. They can also become stunned, fatigued, diseased, or worse. Rules for all of these ailments can be found in the rulebook. Then we go back to the combat track to see who activates next. Once all of the heroes and hostile groups have activated, we reach the event phase. The event phase is where you see if your journey ends or continues. If any of your heroes are still standing but haven't reached the extraction zone yet, your journey carries on. At this point, your leader makes a roll on the event table. Some of these results are good for your heroes, such as returning a fighter that is out of action to the fray. Some, however, are not so good, such as hostile groups getting a free move action or a crisis erupting in the city. After the event phase is complete, we go back to the journey phase and start another turn. Can Jelson overcome his wounds, or will the Orphan Watch drag him down to his doom? Journeys into the Cursed City are never straightforward, and if fighting off Deadwalker zombies, the Orphan Watch, and worse, wasn't bad enough, a crisis can occur. These range from saving unwary civilians to answering mysterious calls for help from down dark alleyways. For most crises, the leader must select a single hero to go and deal with it. If the hero is successful, they will be rewarded, but it can be bad news for both the hero and the city should they fail. Once the crisis is over, the hero rejoins their friends and the journey continues. Each type of journey has a different victory condition. To win the hunt journey that our heroes have been on, they have to slay 10 hostile champions. If you're successful, Radakar's influence in the city is reduced. Other journey types may allay fear among the population or increase the experience of your heroes. Remember these consequences when you choose your next journey. If the levels of fear or influence gets too high, Ulfin Khan is doomed. After you've completed your journey, your heroes are picked up by the airship Adamant. Here they can recuperate from their injuries, use any realm stone they found to improve their weapons, and prepare for the next journey. In Warhammer Quest Curse City, your journeys are combined into an epic quest to defeat Radakar the Wolf and save the city. So, grab your friends, choose your fighters, and head to the Cursed City. Only you can overcome the undead swarms and free Ulfan Khan. Good luck!